So, good morning, everybody. My name is Laura Jane Rawlings. I'm the Chief Executive of Youth Employment UK, and today I'm going to be walking you through our Youth Friendly Employer Masterclass, Rethinking Your Youth Employment Strategy for the Class of 2020. So just a few quick introductions and housekeeping points. The session is being recorded. You can use the chat box to speak with Kim, who is available to deal with any technical issues and to get my attention if there's any problems. But please do keep your own microphones on mute until we get to the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the class of 2020 and the issues that young people have who would have been leaving school, sixth form, college or university this year, and what that's going to mean for particular organisations and the way that they'll support them into that next step transition. So I'm really thinking right now immediately about those young people who would have been doing their GCSEs this summer, A-levels or finishing university, because they will be making their transition, you know, in such an unprecedented way, with lack of support around them, you know, not completing their full education as they had planned and were prepared to do. And it's going to have such an impact on them and how they move through the next stages of their lives. But actually this isn't going to end anytime soon. The class of 2020, of course, are massively affected, but actually younger students who are perhaps in year 9 and year 10, or those doing the first year of A-levels or the first year of university, have had massive upheaval themselves. You know, the government are putting today forward all of the measures for summer schools and tutoring programs, because it is well documented that the gaps in learning, and particularly at this length, have a real impact on the future attainment of young people, and their attainment has a massive impact on their future career prospects and their, you know, their lives. So, you know, we're worried about primary school children and you know, that the issue that is going to have on them. But certainly for those who are a little older in the system, who are a little nearer that jobs market, have really got some miles to make up to where they would have been had we not seen the coronavirus. So that's going to have a real bearing. In particular, one of our partners have done some incredible research around academic attainment and the impact that has on young people's future aspirations and life chances. And it's well worth just kind of, you know, absorbing some of their findings to ensure that you really recognise what those bigger impacts are going to be, because they will ultimately affect that future workforce that you're looking to recruit. And also, if you're in education or if you're in an employment charity, there will certainly be things that you'll be needing to think of and pick up with the young people in your, you know, coming into your programs. For lots of young people who are leaving education this year, there will be a massive lack of transition support. You know, for many young people, they would have spent, you know, a couple of weeks towards the end of their school year or their college year in CV workshops, interview clinics, support environments with career practitioners. They would have been having one-to-one guidance about applying for jobs and their aspirations and their next steps. I mean, all of that has stopped and not been able to kind of move as rapidly online, or to ensure that all young people have been able to access that support online. I mean, you know, before COVID, young people have told us that careers education had not been consistent and not always good. Certainly during COVID, that's going to be sort of an exasperated challenge. And I know that there are some amazing career practitioners out there who are doing all they can to reach and engage and support those young people, but it is still really inconsistent, and definitely you can be sure not all young people will have that support to make that transition. I think of my own son who is doing his GCSEs, would have been doing his GCSEs this year. He hasn't had contact from school since March in a personal way. It's just been through email. And certainly he's had no career support, and he's moving on to a different secondary school for sixth form. Now he's okay because, of course, he was born lucky, right? He lives with a neurotic mother who is able to give him all of that career support that he needs. but I think about the cohort and his peer group, and just am really conscious of the lack of support and knowledge that they will have around them to be able to do that, and not through really anybody's fault. It is a sheer challenge of what COVID has brought to us all. I think it's really important to remember that COVID is not just having an impact on education and transition. There are young people that we know of that have lost family members who have died because of COVID, and they're dealing with all sorts of levels of grief and anxiety because of the health crisis. Um, you know, I'm thinking particularly of an ambassador in our network who has lost 2 members of family due to COVID, and has not been able to grieve with family members properly because of isolation, and has certainly, not been able to kind of have that closure that often a funeral can bring. So she will be carrying that challenge and that anxiety for months and if not years ahead. It's something you don't get over very quickly. And I think that's really important to recognise, though young people are not necessarily affected themselves by the health issue of COVID, their family members will be grandparents, parents, parents who work in frontline services. Young people will be particularly anxious about the health and well-being of those family members. And that is going to be an anxiety that stays. Important to think about, the year group this year that would have been having work experience, and actually I know how excited my son was about turning 16. He hasn't yet, but he and his peer group could not wait for that national insurance number to come through the letterbox, because they all want to get into being able to find a Saturday job and start earning their own money. And it's going to not be possible for them this year, because there are already such so many people available now for every vacancy. We did a lot of work earlier this week on Tuesday when the employment data came out. There are now 8.5 people looking for work for every vacancy. So our young people who would have been absolutely ready to move on into part-time Saturday jobs or weekend working, whatever, are really going to struggle to be able to access those paid work experience opportunities. And of course, for many employers, they've not been able to offer their normal work experience or internship opportunities this year as they would have done. And that might last into 2021. So it is really important to consider, when you're thinking about your recruitment process or the requirements of candidates coming into your environment, that you really question what level of experience you think is reasonable to expect from the class of 2020. We will be encouraging all the employers we work with to remove that need for work experience off the recruitment process. And all of this amounts to a rise in mental health and anxiety amongst our young people. Pre-COVID, we absolutely knew through the Youth Voice Census and research that we do with young people and the conversations we have on a day-to-day basis that there were still high levels of youth unemployment. Young people did not believe there were good quality jobs around them and near where they lived. And young people were telling us about lots of barriers they faced, already a lack of work experience, already challenges around their anxiety, their lack of employability skills, or knowing what good careers existed, etc. They were all issues that we were being told about pre-COVID. Now we're going to see those in absolute amplification, because COVID has just exacerbated that situation. So it wasn't a fixed system before COVID, and it certainly means that right now, with the prediction of youth unemployment rising to 1.5 to 2 million young people this year, we have to work faster and harder to make sure that our processes are really the right processes, given all that the world has changed in the last few months. One of the things that we're doing a lot of work on is thinking about, what does a young person need around them, the holistic approach to supporting a young person's journey to employment. This framework, the Journey to Employment framework, was created sort of back out of the last youth unemployment crisis by a cohort of third sector organisations, and it really has stood the test of time in my book. We're thinking for sure, as we're talking to DWP and welfare providers and employability organisations about this framework, and ensuring that actually we don't just try and move a young person into a job without recognising that they need all of these kind of functions around them to be operating really well. So when you look at this, you can really put it into the context of COVID and some things that I've already raised, to the personal circumstances. Thinking about the personal circumstances you can see on the slide: transport, access to the internet, childcare, carers, those issues that were there pre-COVID. Now post-COVID, we're going to have those issues of the anxiety of leaving the house, the social isolation that young people have experienced over the last few months, and how that's going to make them feel moving then back into whatever the world looks like in the coming months and year. So how do we manage those? How do we manage any grief and support needs that they might have because they were living in, not ideal circumstances in lockdown? So how do we identify those young persons' needs? It's a bit like Maslow's hierarchy. If you don't address these issues in full, young people just won't be able to sort of take those confident steps into their next destination. And that includes then emotional capabilities, their resilience, their self-esteem. All of those things have been undermined by COVID, particularly the young people that would have been doing exams this year. The education system builds itself on telling young people that that their success measures are based on exam outcomes, and now they can't identify with those success measures because they haven't been able to do the exams. So that's having a massive effect on the self-esteem and personal confidence. The attitudes about work and looking for work. Young people weren't confident they would find good jobs. It's going to be even more of a problem now that we're going to enter a unemployment crisis. So how do we kind of boost those attitudes and aspirations? Boost young people's employability skills, the skills that you learn when you've got a part-time Saturday job, the team working, problem solving, self-management. All of those skills are kind of going to be much harder for young people to acquire during lockdown and with the issues that we talked about. It's one of the reasons why our young professional, the free skills program that we've got, has got to be a central kind of response to helping young people to develop their employability skills. We talk to young people, we support them to develop all of those skills online already, and have been doing so for years. So we've got to find different ways of making sure that young people can acquire those skills outside of the norm. Qualifications, education and training, it's going to be a real mixed bag about whether young people get the grades they think they deserve because of the way assessment's happening this year. Are they going to be able to access the qualifications or the support that they need to get the skills, the technical skills required for the jobs they're going to be moving into? Big questions. And then we talked about experience involvement and that career management, that support that would have happened with face-to-face career guidance at the end of that full-time education period. So it's important to think about factoring these in when you're developing your programs, whether you're developing an onboarding program because you're an employer, or you're developing a college program to take on post-16 students, or you're an employability service organisation. Think about what you're going to do as part of your induction to identify where a young person sits on this journey, and what you can do as the very first steps to bolster these areas that perhaps are weaker because of COVID. And all of the work that we do at Youth Employment UK for organisations who are supporting young people, employers, colleges, youth organisations, all lens through the Youth Friendly Employer mark. This is a quality mark that young people created with us back in 2012 that said, actually, what does good employment practice look like? And right now we need good employment practice more than we've ever needed it before. So young people, identified these 5 principles: creating opportunity, recognising talent, fair employment, developing people in youth voice, and they couldn't be more essential right now. And actually, what couldn't be more essential is an organisation having that badge, so that a young person can recognise that there is a good opportunity with a good employer, with a good organisation near them. And we get into a lot of detail with our members who sign up to these principles in helping them understand what that means and embedding them into their organisation. And that includes, a huge framework that sits behind the Youth Friendly Employer mark, that organisations self-assess where they are against all criteria, from your early careers outreach programme to your work experience to how you do your employment strategy, from onboarding and training and mentoring and personal development, all within this framework. Then right now we've got plans to review this framework to just recognize it in the light of COVID and make sure that it really does support that transition for all young people. But I thought what I would do is pull out some of those key considerations that come from the framework, and that when we're talking to young people right now, what they're telling us they need. Last week we spent quite a bit of time talking about developing early work experience and engagement programs online, your digital online outreach. It's more important than ever that we get this right, that you are able to reach young people. They're not going to be in the normal places, perhaps they're not in school, they're not in colleges, they're not going to be at careers fairs. So how do you do that digitally? How do you reach the widest possible audience to raise their aspirations, to inspire them? There's going to be great opportunities for them, and to let them know about your brand and your commitment to being youth friendly. Think about that online and social engagement and the types of engagement that might need to be, and do go and have a look. If you didn't join us last week for the webinar, do go and have a look at that webinar that we did, and let us know if you've got further questions. Reviewing your recruitment process, this is going to be essential for organisations thinking about the class of 2020. Is it going to work? Are you asking too much? Does a young person who hasn't had career support, are they going to be able to understand your digital recruitment process? Are they going to understand what the trick is to get through your algorithms and get through that onboarding criteria that you've set up, because it's a digital process? You really need to make sure that you're testing your theory or your development of your programs or your recruitment strategy with young people. You need to be identifying groups of young people who are your target groups, and make sure that actually they can walk through your outreach, they can walk through your recruitment process and really understand what you're looking for and how to be successful. Because actually, if it feels too complex, if it feels too difficult to them, they will deselect themselves, and then you'll be left with a cohort of perhaps the more able and confident students, and that won't give you the breadth of inclusion and diversity that that we know organisations really want, and that they really benefit from. So it's really important to understand what support you might need to put in place so that young people can succeed in your recruitment process. We're hearing a lot from our ambassadors about the barriers they're experiencing with that online recruitment processes right now. So it's well worth having those conversations within your networks or with us about what you're thinking of doing. And then when we get into sort of, you have recruited, you've got that amazing diverse workforce or cohort students or candidates coming into your organisation. What does a really good induction process look like for the class of 2020? And this first point is essential. You've really got to get to know the individual. You've got to get to know young people on a one-to-one basis, because you can't even begin to understand where they are on that JET framework, that diagram that we showed earlier. You can't even begin to recognise where they are on that if you are dealing with the cohort as a cohort. You've got to get into the individual, their challenges. You've got to understand how COVID impacted them, what their needs are, and what support you're going to need to put into place for those young people. You're going to have to spend quite a bit of your onboarding time, that induction time, doing the social. Young people have lost contact with each other. Young people are going to be nervous and anxious about meeting face to face again. So building in time to develop the social interaction amongst your cohort is going to be important. Making sure that they feel comfortable around the colleagues and peers that they're going to be engaged with. Making sure they've got the emotional support and capability to access your program and to be there and be present in the way that you need them to be. And if they don't, then you need to be able to support them to be able to get there, and to recognise that and maybe take that a bit slower with them. And that includes being able to support their well-being. And making sure you've got some really great systems in place to identify early problems and to have some really good strategies to support those young people. Thinking about skill development, actually, if they haven't been able to access the teamwork and the problem solving through the part-time jobs or the work experience that we talked about, you're going to have to start with the basics. And I think that's a great place to start. Ensure that all young people you're working with have all got the same base level understanding, and then you can build from there. We really encourage mentoring and buddying. We always have done. It's something that young people really benefit from, and it's within the framework, the Friendly Employer framework, whether it's work experience or employment. Signing and allocating a buddy or a mentor to young people is a great way. Even better if that buddy is another young member of staff, perhaps somebody from your existing apprenticeship program or from the year above on the college program, so that there's someone in a peer system of mentoring and buddying. That works for both participants in that system, because the more experienced person gets a lot out of mentoring a younger person, and the younger person gets a hell of a lot out of having a role model to mentor them. And make sure you have got really good, really regular check-in points on a one-to-one. You cannot do all of this with the whole cohort. You've got to make sure there's personal one-to-one contact points there. Ongoing development, thinking then about how you, from your onboarding to how you really get young people into your organisation and get them working in the way that you need them to be working, and developing in the way that you need them to be developing, whether that's education or employment. Starting off with clear expectations is critical in terms of that development. Where we are now, what you expect, when you expect it by, and building those frameworks in couldn't be more essential. And showing that detailed training plan too, showing young people what they're going to learn, when they're going to learn it, what the outcome of that learning is, helps them to really engage and plan for themselves and process that information. And again, even beyond the early onboarding check-in points, you will need to have ongoing regular reviews and to sense and check back into that JET framework and make sure that the progress has been made across all of those facets. So then just moving on to line manager support and what that might look like. Talking to your line manager about this, sharing perhaps the presentation or doing your own version of this presentation to make sure that those people who are closest to this young cohort really do understand the barriers, the challenges, and where the opportunities are. Providing key resources to line managers with their support sessions. I think it's really important that line managers have good frameworks to do that check-in, a list of things that they've got to be looking for, discussing, and almost signing off to say that they have gone through that full process. Providing line managers with, mental health at first aid. There's some brilliant online courses, and we can support with that. Safeguarding and sort of general coaching and mentoring training, and they're all things that you can boost into your line manager development so that they can really be supporting those young people well, and make sure that those line managers and the young people that they're supporting have got the ability to have a good relationship together. Sometimes we allocate a line manager because of level of experience or because of the job that they have, and sometimes that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be a good line manager for a young person or have empathy or support and understanding where that young person's coming from. So make sure that your line managers are the right people for the cohort, for the young person that they're going to support. And if not, look at alternatives, or look at that mentoring and buddying system being much more consistent throughout your program. And make sure your line managers are empowered to identify problems and to come and talk to you about problems, or whatever the process is if there is a problem there. They've got to be able to see these problems early so that they can be dealt with head on, and they've got to be able to know that they've got support around them to tackle those issues. So what can we do to support young people? What else can we do? I think it's really important. These are common slides. If you've been involved in other masterclasses, you'll see these, kind of repeat themselves a bit. But it's because they're important and that they're right. You must be talking to young people about what they need from you and what your expectations are. Having really honest and open dialogue, it couldn't be better. Young people are really ready for honest conversations, and they know when it's not honest and when it's tokenistic. So to really get into sort of habits of having good open conversations. Involve young people. If you are developing an onboarding program for the class of 2020 coming into your organisation, ask the class of 2019 to co-develop that with you. Get them to tell you what they liked about their onboarding, their induction. Get them to offer to create some of this content with you and for young people, and get them involved in that, in being the buddies. But also, if you think about, if you're a college or an employer, perhaps in your first few days of having young people coming into your organisation, perhaps you can sit down with them and involve them in the next steps of what they want, how they want it, how things are going to be shaped. So it can be really tailored to their particular needs. We'd encourage you to provide further opportunities for young people. Things like embedding the young professional training into your programme will allow young people to have another platform of support outside of your organisation, so that they can access good, inspiring content or read case studies from other young people and recognise that they're not alone with some of the challenges and the issues that they're facing, that can continue to help them think about their skills. Provide them opportunities for volunteering and provide them opportunities to, really shape your thinking. And signpost young people to the services around them. Make sure you know that if there's a mental health issue, that young people have got the right support. Don't try and fix everything yourself, but make sure that you know who to signpost young people to, and they've got contact and access to those services. This just goes on to show what the young professional can do, and where you can find more information onto it. And as I say, I think it's a great tool right now to really complement existing programs of support for young people. On this slide is some other links to some of those mental health and wellbeing organisations and other opportunities that young people can get involved in. These slides will be available to you after the webinar today, and they're all active links, so you'll be able to get straight to them when you get the slide deck. We have developed two major resources for young people and employers over the COVID period, and that is our support for young people, which has got a lot of mental health and advice and guidance and tips and ideas on it, lots of other stories from other young people. So it's a great place for young people to get the help that they need. And in similar vein is the coronavirus support for employers. All of our webinars are there, advice, tips, resources that you might need, including some incredible mental health resources that have been created by AXA in partnership with mental health charities, all available for you to just go and take a look at and get what you need. As I've already talked about, we have led 4 masterclasses now. This is the 5th. All masterclasses are available to you on our website, so please do go and take a look at them. We have next week, we are launching the Youth Voice 2020. Every year we do a survey of young people who are 14 to 24 and find out about their experiences and challenges as they're moving between education and employment. This year, the 2020 Youth Voice Census is launching next week on Tuesday, and you're very welcome to attend that launch, where our ambassadors will be sharing the key findings. We lead lots of different webinars on lots of different topics and bring in partners and expert organisations to support those. So there is a lot of content around our site if you're looking for more information on developing your understanding of what it means to be a good youth-friendly employer. Which that sums up quite nicely the rallying cry for organisations right now to step up and show young people that they're committed to best practice. We really urge you to take a look at the Youth Friendly Employer Mark and joining our membership. We are a not-for-profit, so actually all of the help and advice we provide young people is funded through those organisations who are working with us on the Youth Friendly Employer Mark. So it really does do incredible things for both employers and young people. We're able to help with recruitment campaigns, that online, kind of experience that you're looking to create for young people, with over 100,000 young people using our site every month. There's a lot of expertise and support that we can offer. So do get in touch if there is more information that you need that we can help you with at any time. And I wish you all the very best. Stay safe, stay well, and have a superb weekend. Many thanks. Bye.